I just dropped the entire fucking bike on the ground from full lift. Took it off the table, wheeled it out. It landed right on this gauge, so that'll need to be replaced. I scuffed up my new tank, and then you can see it landed on the coil here. So, but because of how stout I built this thing, nothing else is damaged. Whoopsies. Relatively speaking, the front end of this thing is going to be one of the easier things to fabricate. I'm going to use 1" slipped inside 1¼ slipped inside 1.5". And the only reason I'm doing that is because I don't have thick walled DOM tubing available to me, so I just kind of make my own. The 600 is just 1¼ slipped into 1.5", and it does have a good amount of flex, and it does hold up good. There's always a worry in my mind that the front end is going to snap underneath of me, so I'm just adding 1" to this whole thing just for some reassurance to myself when I'm riding this thing down the highway. I'll make the trees out of this 1/2" plate. I'll make the axle plates out of that too. I got all of my information from like the chopper book, Chopper's Builder's Hand Guide or some shit. It's a website this guy made. He's an engineer. He's been building bikes for like 50 years. He's got a section on rigid front ends, and I was looking on there. I originally was looking into putting chromoly in this thing. He doesn't recommend it. And I'll link it down below. I'm not going to get into the material choices in this. I'll cut all these down to length, get them cleaned up, and then we can get them welded to each other. Just going to double check all these right off the saw blade. I'll bevel the 1¼ and the 1". Just gonna spend some quality time with some Scotch-Brite and get the majority of this stuff cleaned off. I need one of those pipe cleaner things. Those they got the big long sanding belt on them for cleaning tube. That would be sweet. I got it stuck out the backside just on a jack stand, and this way all this shit doesn't fall onto the lathe. What does it look like? Yeah, let's delete the jack stand. Before and after. Just gonna give all this stuff a once over with acetone. This part of the build, very homoerotic. Just me wiping and fucking rubbing shafts. Acetone kind of smells good. So I'm going to drill through the back side of this one and the 1¼ and that way I can get a little plug weld to connect these. The advantage of that is that this kind of bananas the tube, and so it kind of gives it an overbend so that when you put the bike on it, the tubes are nice and straight and not bent the other way. The 600 is 18" spacing. I'm just going to do 16 on these ones. I'm going to drill the 1.5" just slightly bigger than the 1¼ so I can get in there. I'll weld the 1¼ to the 1", and then I can have a little bit of a lip to weld the 1.5" to the 1¼ and then obviously it'll be welded on the ends as well. Level. I know I could get a angle iron and draw a straight line and whatever, but what's going on here? Kobe. I fucking hate Milwaukee Chucks. I hate them so much. They are the worst. I'm probably going to put a key chuck on this. I cleaned the insides of these tubes with brake clean and I sprayed them out with the air compressor. I'm trying to get all that cutting oil and stuff out of there. These tubes are going to hang up a little bit. Oh, there we go. You'll push the burr out into the hole. Where is the hole on this now? If I had a nickel, eh? When I weld this, I won't use filler, and I'll drop my tungsten in there and just fuse that inner circle, and then I'll fuse the outer circle, and then I'll fill it with filler afterwards. I just decided I'm going to fill these with MIG. Why not? I went over all those MIG welds with TIG, just filled in all the low spot. Weld the ends up, and then we'll be at a starting point that I could be at if I could just order a thick wall tube. I got the axle in there with the spacers. I'm just going to retain the stock spacers in this. The one side spacer is the speedo drive. I'll probably machine up one that'll make a little bit nicer than that, but I'm just going to ever so slightly score that with a file. That plus half the material thickness of our plates on either side, right? Which is 1/2 inch. So I'll just add a 1/2 inch to this measurement, and that'll give me the center to center distance on our triple tree plate. She's going to be a wide boy. 7.5, so 8 inches. So there's our center to center marks of our tube. If we go 3/4 out, that leaves us with 3/8 of an inch material on the triple tree. From here to, I'm just going to copy what I did on the 600. It rides really nice. I just picked numbers last time. I didn't reference anything. So if this is 1 1/8, I'll go 2 1/8, and this will be that's where my handlebars will clamp to. And then I think it was 2 3/4 from this mark. Well, you know what? I don't want to do math. So we'll just go 2 3/4 back. And that'll be our steering stem. And then I'll find the center of this. 4 from there. 1 3/4, 1 3/4, and that'll be for our handlebars. I'll cut this down, and then I'll get this tacked onto another piece the same size. I used a square to get the front face nice and flush. I'll tack this thing together, and then I can do tiny little pilot holes in these center punch marks. It doesn't really matter where stuff is, or like how you shape these. The only thing that matters is that these are in line with each other, right? Because that's obviously where the tubes have to slide up through. Holes will end up different sizes, but as long as they're in the same plane with each other, that's all that matters here. This will just give me a good reference for when I split these plates. I know that these three will be in line with each other. Last time I did this, I used a mag drill, and I was able to drill these out with annular cutters, but it was almost too good. Do you know what I mean? The annular cutters cut like right on size. They leave a machined surface, so I ended up having to open those holes up anyway, and I don't have a mag drill. I ended up borrowing it. Went and I got a new hole saw, 1.5 inch hole saw, and I have this thing lined up so that the pilot bit just slips in there with no deflection. And so now I know that that's in line with our hole, and then I can put my hole saw in there, and I'll hole saw these two for the 1.5 inch, and then I can do the triple tree one for 1 inch. And then on this plate, this one is 1 inch, and then the rest are 1/2 inch for my M12 screws, and then for the 1/2 inch hardware for the risers. Just gotta clear the chips out of the teeth as you go. It's not a fast process by any means. I've heard that if you drill a hole right there in the radius of your hole saw, it'll clear the chips down that hole. The surface finish in there is actually not too bad. The tool pressure is quite high on hole saws. That 1.5 inch one, if I tried to give it any sort of tool pressure, it would just spin the belt because it's so big. It just made these tiny little chips, and it would clog up the teeth, and it was kind of annoying, but this 1 inch seems to be going okay. See, that's pulling the chips out of there. It's a shitload of holes, dude. I think I just need a new key. The key slipped and I just punched the drill bit. I need a new drill chuck for this, and I need a drill chuck for my Milwaukee drill. Come on, you fucker! Why are you being this way? Oh god. So far this project has just been drilling holes, and we're not done yet. We got a couple more holes to drill. This is the axle plates. Drill these out for 20mm. Oh. Just kidding. Don't do that at home. Alright, 20mm hole. I bet you this is going to be a fucking nightmare. I don't know why I have this drill, but I'm thankful that I do. I'm trying to think of what I have ordered it for. Oh god. It's cutting not bad, but it's just chattering its way through this fucking material. There we go. Look at that. This is like, oh, so close. It's scraping the grease off this side. That's a nice fit, man. I am very happy with that. I still don't know why I had that drill in my drawer, or what I ordered it for, but I'm stoked that it was in there. Lucked out on that one. I'm gonna drill a set screw hole in this plate for M61. I think this is the last hole I have to drill, actually, which is sweet. Just lining the center up with my punch mark. Nice. I was trying to get a cool shot and then the drill fucking slipped. Idiot. I got this guy back in there. I realized that this hole's supposed to be 1 1/8 inches, not 1 inch. So I just put the hole saw in there, lined it up, and I got it clamped. I had to go buy 1 1/8 inch hole saw. I don't have a boring head. That would make this way easier if I could just bore these holes out, but I don't have one. So I'll throw 1 1/8 inch hole saw in there. I'll drill that out, and then we can get the tool post back in here and do some turning. This rapid tap smokes a lot. I just gotta turn this guy down slightly to 1 1/8 inch. It's like 50 thou too big. That's the reason why I ended up opening up that hole. I know I could turn this down to 1 inch, but I didn't want to compromise the wall thickness of this piece. I'm gonna get rid of that little clip groove. I probably should have zip cut it down. It's quite a bit of facing. The lathe is fun. Just fits on there. There's a little bit of play, a little more than I'd like, but funny because it's so hard to get on there, but once it's on there, it's got all this play. I really wish I would have snuck up on that better. I did the same fucking thing on the last bike too, and I said, I'm gonna sneak up on that cut, and then I blew that fucking steering stem too. Oh well. What are you gonna do? If you wanted it done right, you should have got somebody else to do it. Gotta turn down a couple of M12 nuts now. I'll just take a M12 bolt, put in the chuck here, and then we'll get that set in the lathe. Probably arm rate the shot, hey? Yeah, 90 thou. I gotta take off these. I want to file a bevel on this. I turn these to just be a nice fit in the end of the tube. So I'll sink that in there a little bit. I'll tack it, weld that. This is stainless, so I'll weld that with 309, and then I can grind these flush. I can live with that. This is like the little dust shield for the old bearings, and it just happens to be the perfect radius. I'll do the same thing down here. And then we will cut these out. I got these things all cleaned up, shaped. They're not perfect, but they're handmade, so what do you expect? I also did the little axle plates. I don't know if I should try to weld this guy into there, or if I should try to bolt it up. I just don't know if I want to really get that race super hot. I don't think that'll fuck it up. A little bit of heat won't fuck up a bearing race. You put heat on a bearing race to get them on, right? Right, that's what I'll tell myself. I gotta put the races in here now. They're in the freezer right now, but I'll get these as clean as possible. I have a blind bearing puller that I use to pull them out, and I think I'm just going to get one of those, expand it, and try to punch them in. Oh yeah, don't hate that. And I'll just do the same for the bottom side. which is easier said than done. It's probably gonna be a fucking pain in the ass. In the freezer all fucking day, and then it just it warms up in 5 seconds. Oh, I bent my steering stop when I dropped it. Out of all the things that could have happened, that's not the worst. It's like as soon as I turn the camera off, things go smoothly. So these bearing races are in there now. I'm using the power of the lathe here to get this thing tacked on. The new tapered roller bearings, the inner race is locked into the bearings itself, the rollers. So I'm just going to get my tailstock situated here. I got a couple parallels, and then I'll push this guy out. That's giving clamping force. I can't get clamps on it, and I need to hold this square. There's a nice square shoulder from where I turn that down. This is the simplest way I could think of to clamp this in. I don't know what this shaft is, so I'm just going to weld it with 309. If it's stupid and it works, is it stupid? Oh, fuck yeah. Okay, check this out. I tacked a rod in the back of my lathe, and then you could just put a clamp on a drill, and I have that set to the slowest speed, and now I have the world's shittiest power turner. So let's give this thing a shot. That worked incredibly well. I got one little misstep there, but the rest of it's really good. The color's actually really nice too. Wow. I kind of panicked at the start and I was really feeding her in there, but then once I got to the end, oh yeah, look at that. I got this thing lifted back up. I forgot to set up the camera and do all that. I was kind of nervous, understandably nervous about putting this back up here. There. I just want to make sure all of the hardware is in here, like the shims, all the little retaining washers. I just want to make sure it's all in there so that when I tack this bottom one in, I'll know that spacing's correct. Oh, that's a long fucking thread. I don't know why I got such a long one. We got to change up the program here. I don't remember how I did this last time. It was on the ground. Friday night, I'm in my garage talking to myself. Sketchy. How fucking stupid does that look? Hey? That's our front end. That's a long bike, hey? The rest of it doesn't look so disproportionate now that the front end's on there. People were talking about how beefy that sissy bar was. Now look at it. So the way I tacked these guys together is I made sure that the bottom corner of these plates lined up really good, and then I clamped them and tacked them so that when I measure, I'm going to measure off the top clamp all the way down to here, and I'll do that on both sides so that when I slide this down I can meet that corner up to that line, and I'll know that these holes are in line with each other. $78.5. Now I'll pull these out and I can get those plates tacked on. The tube's clamped to the table with the welds facing back, and then I have the axle plate set on just the right amount of parallels to get it right in the center of this tube. And then I have that clamped and I have it set on my scribe line. I'll tack the back and then I can clean the front quick and squeeze this all back together, and then I'll tack the front just to get that Sharpie out of there. Oh, little fire. I'm going to do a little stitch, maybe an inch of weld on this side, and then I'll unclamp it, flip it over, clamp it back down the same way, and then I'll run that full pass. Just because if I were to weld all this, that thing will... God damn it. It's just never... You think that you can get this stuff done so fast, but it's just like all the little fucking around you end up having to do with like my welding helmet falling off. Just that stupid shit makes an all-day thing. I realize it seems silly to weld this with stick, but if there's one process to trust my life to, it's this. If there's one tool you should probably wear a face shield with, it's one of these, because these things fly off and they really hurt. I always get them in my belly. The top nut is bottoming out on the thread of the steering stem, and so I'm just gonna weld a little spacer onto here. I got a piece face down in the lathe and I cut it to length, but when you have a really short piece like this, just stick some parallels in the lathe, put that against the parallels, pull these guys out of there. This way I know my nut's clamping evenly on that plate if this is nice and true. I could have just got a stainless washer for this, but it's Saturday and the store is closed. Also in one of my videos I said that I couldn't get metric stainless socket head cap screws. They're literally right beside where I get the hex head bolts. I just noticed them yesterday, so I'm an idiot. That's a tight fit. That's a really good fit. They have to be lined up just so. Fork legs are in tight. The axle's all the way in. I'll just take my little file and I'm just gonna scribe this guy right here. So now I know where that shoulder needs to be. I'll cut this guy down and I'm gonna use a piece of 1-inch DOM. I'll turn this down just past that line so that when I tighten this nut, it'll sandwich that wheel in these plates. So that guy's face down, and I've got this collar made. Weld that here. I'll weld that with 309 just because I don't know what this is. And then once that's welded, I'll face that down, and this will be one piece. So with that axle all the way in there, when I tighten that end bolt, it'll suck those spacers together. The front axle is tight. These are also tight. I'll tack the front and the back sides of these. It all pulled itself pretty straight, and you can eyeball these, and they are dead straight to each other. So I know that it's in line this way. What's the point of life if you're not gonna try shit out, right? That's what I think. I was going to take this whole thing out to weld it, but I might just do this in position. It might be easier just to do it right here, now that I'm doing it. I'm just going to do sections of this. I just don't want to get those bearings hot in there. It probably wouldn't fuck it up, but better safe than sorry. Well, that's cooling down. I've got this little bit of chain. I'm gonna cut a bunch of links off of here and weld it to the underside of this front end. Because it's so long, I can strap shit to it. Put these under there and that'll just give me a spot to hook like bungee straps and shit to. I have some cleaning vinegar. It's like extra acidic. It works really good to take galvanized and stuff off. So I'll just put enough of this in. Let those guys strip. I'm going to drill this for clearance of that M6 set screw. And so then when I put this guy in, I'll thread that set screw in and it'll go right through this axle. So it'll be clamped and it'll be held in that way. That's kind of my redundancy. That cuts way easier than that stainless. That good tap. And then this way with this guy, I don't have to put any holes or anything in there to turn the to turn the nut in. Completely cleans that up. I marked the back of the fork leg at the same 16 inches. Athena, what are you doing in here, kitty? Come here. Come here. Making an appearance. It's really dirty in here. You shouldn't come in here when I'm in the middle of a job. She pushes the door open. Sometimes I don't latch it all the way. Oh. Come to say hi. Let's put you back inside, okay? Yeah, so I marked 16 inches where the welds were, just so that they're even. I pulled this out of the vinegar and I just rinsed it in water. I'll cut this down, cut some links, and then we'll get those welded to the back. It's easy to pick off the table when it's already touching the ground. Okay, we'll get that back tire in there. Kinda pretty much nailed the height right off the fucking crane. Let's see if this will sit on that kickstand. My 600 with the long front end, it would sit on the kickstand. It would just lean way over. Oh yeah. There's just so much weight on the front end that you get the ultimate gangster lean. This thing is tall. Maybe I'll put a brick under there. I'd say I'm successful at building a long bike. That fucking tire looks sick. I used aircraft cable on my 600, but this is going to have nice paint, and that thing just scratches the fuck out of the paint, so there it sits. I'm not going to lie, guys. I fucking nailed the stance on this bike. The frame proportions, the back wheel, the 17 front. This thing looks bad. The fucking ape hangers, I was going to run shorter apes, but I think the 14s, a little bit of a lifted riser. Ooh, I am stoked on this. This thing looks good. I wish you could see it in person. Now I gotta do steering stops. I put the bars and tank on so that I could get the steering stops done, but the tank's so far back that it basically clears the front end, which is really good. I technically don't need them, but we'll do it. We'll do it just cause. Pretty much go right to the end of this thing. Is that enough? I might just be able to put plates right on the ends. I thought it was gonna be on top, honestly. So we'll do one right there, and then we'll do one. I found a piece of 1/4-inch flat bar on the floor. I'll hold this up to there, and I'll mark the bottom, and then I'll cut that, and then cut this in half, because it doesn't need to be very big. I know I could have done something cooler, but who fucking cares? Really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It is a steering stop. It doesn't matter, guys. The front end's done. I just have to do the little fucking baggage chains. We gotta get it up against the garage door so I can take a picture of it. Instagram at Cole Yellowbird. It's about to go up there. I'm not cool enough to like hold off and wait till I'm done anything. I have to post stuff right now. I get too stoked. Okay, well I fucked these up. When you look down, this is just ever so slightly twisted. I don't know why I thought I could trust just looking down on these. These are like dead straight, but even if they were just a little off, by the time you get 6.5 feet down, it's kicked way off. So I'm gonna cut these welds, which sucks because they look nice. Tweak this back straight, and we can weld it up again. And it's gonna drive me nuts. I'm sure it would ride fine. Your handlebars would be straight, but we gotta do this right. I should have got up on the table and double checked. I didn't even think about it. So I'll fix that, and then we can do the bag hooks or whatever. You can really see how twisted that front end is now. Like if you look at the other end by the triple tree, there's a big old gap down there on that one side. So we'll get it straightened out. Before I get a bunch of grinding grit and shit into this bearing, I'm just gonna wrap that up. There we go. I'll get them close by eye, and then I'm going to do one stitch here and one stitch here, and then I'm going to take the whole thing off and I'm going to clamp it to the bench, and that way the twist will stay out of it. Because now at least that way the height of this plate is set. I've got it clamped here and at the end, and then I zeroed out my digital angle finder onto here. That's dead on zero. The top of the tubes are the same as the axle. I'll do as much in position as I can right here. While I let this cool, I can put these chain links on. Okay, so this thing's all back together. I put the handlebars and the tank back on it because it's just fun to look at. Anybody who's up to date on their Honda Shadow lore will recognize this. Shout out Scott, Master Peel, fucking support yourself. And it is a little auxiliary LED light. And I ran it on my 600 just off to the side with a little P-clamp. I'm gonna resurrect this look. Instead of the P-clamp, I'm gonna just weld a bracket off to the side. I'll make this resemble the axle plate. Because this is on the bike and there's no easy way to get the center line of this tube, all I did was put some Sharpie on here and I took my ruler, running that down, and that gives me a perfectly perpendicular line to these trees. And so now I have a little scribe line on there. I brake cleaned the Sharpie off that because I still have the scribe mark. I'm just picking a random spot to put this. I got my straight edge on here and I'll just eyeball down, square. My friend Andy comes over last night, looking at the welds. Why don't you clean those up a little bit, he says. Like, I'm painting the front end, man. He's like, well, the spatter and shit. They're fucking TIG welds, Andy. There's no spatter and shit. You fucking dumb fuck. If you would have just looked with your own eyes, you would have seen how fucking deadly these are. I know everybody's going to ask me what the trail numbers are on this thing, so thought I'd better check. Right where that lines up with 2 inches, right thereabouts. So now I know that that's in line with the fork. It's not going to be good by any means. And then we'll mark this. And it is 10.5 inches. So it's definitely a lot more than you would regularly want, but it's not too bad. The 600 has like 13, and I think it rides fine. So I did a quick search, and they say you want between 3 and 6 inches. So I've got 10.5, which is better than that other one, so I am not scared. And that's exactly the reason I hang my axles like that, is you're pushing that front tire, that center line of the axle, closer to that mark from the center line of the neck tube, right? That, and you're hanging the weight of the wheel on the underside of the axle. We're getting close to being done this thing. I've just got some odds and ends, wiring, taillights, simple stuff. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm almost done editing this, and I forgot to do the tally. I spent $11.85 on miscellaneous hardware. All the tube, the 1 inch, 1.25 inch, and 1.5 inch, that was $301.39 after tax. Bunched that plate just for the whole thing. I still had some left over, but I'll count the whole thing. It was $49.17, putting the total of the entire build at $1,638.66. And I forgot to mention, me and Andy measured this thing tip to tip, last night, and it's 11 foot 2.5 inches. If it's not long, it's wrong, or whatever.